Welcome to the Coastal Kitchen. I'm Karen Mashures, and today we're going to have a little flair from the Hawaiian Islands. And first thing we're going to make is a pineapple upside down cake. Great addition to any meal. We're going to have Hawaiian crab cakes with pineapple aioli sauce, and we're going to have ginger green beans with a little twist. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing that we've got to do is start our cake because it's going to take just a little while. And I'm going to turn my stove on a medium, and I'm putting in 4 tablespoons of butter. And we're just going to let that melt for a second. Alright, you can see how bubbly that is, all melted. And what I'm going to do is put a cup of dark brown sugar right on top. And we're going to dissolve that sugar in the butter to make our lovely, gooey, sticky top to our pineapple upside down cake. The one thing you want to make sure of is that you don't burn the sugar. So let's get a wooden spoon. Want to change this around just a little bit. I'm going to take this off the heat for a few minutes. And what we're going to do is add pineapple juice. So let me grab my pineapple juice. And what I'm going to do is just drizzle it all around. You can hear that bubble and sizzle. And it melts down that sugar even more. Doesn't that look great? All right, now is the time for our pineapple. And we're going to arrange 6 rings. I think I can get 6 rings in this pan. I'm going to start in the center. Just lay them as close to each other as you can get them without overlapping. That's a perfect number. And we're going to let that sit for just a few minutes. Our next step is another little saucepan with more butter. Getting to sound like another person that's on TV. Got 8 tablespoons of butter, and we need to melt this down. And I'm going to melt it on a medium heat. Grab another little stir here. Okay, all melted. Let's turn this off. I'm going to grab this pot. And I'm going to use this bowl. All right, off the heat. We're going to let it cool down just a second. I'm going to take my egg, 1 egg, and half of a cup of milk, minus a couple little drips there. And I just want to break the egg yolk. Because I don't want to cook my egg, but it's okay to put it in while the butter is still hot. Okay. Just drizzle in. And keep it stirring. Okay, that's pretty well in there right now. And I'm going to get my big bowl out. I put my dry ingredients. Flour. 1.5 cups of flour. I've got some baking powder, some salt, and some sugar. Okay. Now I'm just going to whisk this all together real fast. And now I'm going to incorporate my wet ingredients. And I'm just making a little tiny well, not too much of one. And I'm going to bring the flour into it as quickly as I can. And this is going to be a rather thick batter. Okay, keep whisking. Want to make sure the lumps are out. Now it's time to add my vanilla. And you can see a nice smooth batter. All right, let's take this over here. And I'm going to pour it straight over the top. Okay, now the last thing that I'm going to do is just smooth it a touch out toward the edges. And I'm going to put this right into my oven, 400 degrees, and it's going to go for about 30 to 35 minutes. We're going to test it with a toothpick to make sure the center's done before we take it out. And while I'm getting all this cleaned up and we're waiting for our cake to bake, we're going to have a word from our sponsors, Lowe's Food.
When you start with local produce, add some homegrown Carolina pride, and mix it all with a commitment to family, you get more than a locally based grocery store. You get the taste of home. Lowe's Foods. Lowe's Foods, proud sponsor of the Coastal Kitchen and ATM CTV.
Now it's time to make our pineapple aioli. Now this is a sauce we're going to dribble on top of the crab cakes when they're finished. And I'm going to take a cup of mayo and some rice wine vinegar and some sesame seed oil. That sesame seed oil is so pungent and so lovely. We're just going to stir that in real good here. I'm going to take just a little bit of salt and some fresh ground black pepper and now I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of pineapple juice and give that a good stir. Now in the meantime, I like it a little hot, so I'm going to put a couple of squirts of this sriracha, and if it was up to my husband, it'd be just about half the bottle. He loves everything with some heat. Okay, we're going to let that set for just a second, and I am going to grab me some pineapple here. And you want to get about 3 tablespoons, but I always find it easier to just get me 3 rings of pineapple. And I'm just going to slice them sideways here. And a pastry cutter comes in so handy because it will crush this pineapple in no time at all. Just keep doing it until you feel like it's all into the nice sized pieces that you want. And they don't have to be tiny pieces. They can be a little bit larger. Alright, this is ready to go in. Let's get all that too. Right in the bowl. The last ingredient is cilantro, and I like to eyeball this a little bit. Just grab you some. Take off the big stems. We're going to cut it all up. You could put this in a blender if you wanted to, but to me it's just as easy to do it by hand. Okay, that looks like it should be about enough. I'm going to go back the other way here real quick. In it goes. And we're going to give it a nice stir. This is going to go into the fridge for about 30 minutes before our crab cakes are ready, because we want all the flavors to meld and set up together. And I'm going to do a little tiny taste. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Okay, I'm going to stick this in the fridge, and we're going to go to our crab cakes. Alright, back to crab cakes. I have a pound of crab meat, and at different times you can get crab meat locally and you can pick it yourself, but I'm not a good crab picker, so mine comes from the store already picked for me. The only thing I have done is just checked for some shells. Okay, we're going to put in some mayo. Now, I had the opportunity to go to Hawaii for a wedding of a godchild. The only time I've ever been there, and I went to a place called Sam Choi's, and he is one of the finest chefs in that area, and he makes really great crab cakes, but I made a couple of little changes to his recipe. All right, mayo, and we're going to put in 3/4 of a cup of panko, and panko is Japanese breadcrumbs. They're a little bit crispy, makes this thing hold together. All right, now it's time for our egg. 1 egg, and I'm just going to squish that up real fast, and we're going to throw in our spice. Now, this is Sam Choi's recipe for his magic spice, and it has onion powder, it has garlic powder, cayenne pepper, Old Bay, and paprika. And to make that, all you have to do is put 1 teaspoon of each together, and you've got Sam Choi's magic in a bottle. Dry mustard, we're gonna put a little more heat in here, like Tabasco, so we're gonna give it a couple little dashes. A little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Okay. Give it a little mix. Want those ingredients to start blending together. I'm just going to set this right there because I need to get a knife. Now we're going to put some color in this, and I'm going to use about 1/3 of a red pepper. They taste so good. Let me get the seeds out, and a little bit of the stem here. And I'm just going to cut it into small slices. Okay, now we're going to turn them this way and give them a nice little chop. And I use about 1/3 of a pepper. You can use more, or if you don't care for it, you can put some green pepper in there. But I do like the color differential between the pepper and our next ingredient, which is the scallion. All right, in this goes. And we've got 2 scallions, and I'm just going to cut it into thirds here. Using the greens and all. And I'm just going to do a little chop this way. In they go. And let's mix it all up together. All right, I'm going to let that set for just a second. Give my hands a little bit of a wash. It's time to check on our upside down cake. You grab my oven pads and a toothpick. Oh, it looks almost perfect. And it is. All right. We're going to let this set for 10 minutes and let it cool a little bit. Then we will put it on our cake plate. Okay, one job done. Now, let me grab a pan here. Our crab cakes are going to be made into little balls before they're made into patties. And what I'm going to do is just take nice little handful here, maybe just a little bit more, and I'm going to turn this into my little ball. I'm going to get panko breadcrumbs right here, and I'm going to pat some panko on one side, then I'm going to pat some panko on the other, and I've got a perfect little patty. And we're going to keep going till we make them all. Now you've seen how I'm doing this. I'm going to finish this up. They've got to rest in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes before we put them in our pan. And we'll be back in a few minutes after a word from our sponsors.
When you start with local produce, add some homegrown Carolina pride, and mix it all with a commitment to family, you get more than a locally based grocery store. You get the taste of home. Lowe's Foods. Lowe's Foods, proud sponsor of the Coastal Kitchen and ATM CTV.
It's time for ginger green beans. Now I'm using the thin green bean, which is also called a haricot vert. Yeah, that's a good French word for skinny green beans, but that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to take a little bit of oil, and I'm using canola because it will cook at a little bit higher temperature, and this is going to be cooked almost in the Oriental style. Okay, I am going to put my green beans right here and start to get my ginger ready. Now ginger root, lovely pungent flavor. The only thing that we have to do with it to get it ready, and I'm going to break these pieces off, is peel it, and then we can use our planer and mince it in a fine grated way. Okay, let's put that right there. I've got my planer. Just give this a good tap and it'll all come out. And I'm just going to slide this right here. I've got 2 cloves of garlic, and I'm going to put them in my garlic press. You can mince them if you want to, but this works just fine. Just get that skin out and put my next one in. Alright, I'm going to put this in my oil and see how hot that's getting. Let's just swirl that around just a little bit. Grab a spoon, and I'm going to turn this down to low real quick. Alright, that's pretty well ready right now. Want those flavors to meld, not burn. Okay, let's turn that off real fast. And I'm going to put some water in my smaller frying pan right here. Just enough to start my green beans in a blanch type state. And I'm going to turn this one on, get it rolling, and just put my green beans in. And I've stemmed these green beans just so they look a little bit prettier. Now we're going to add a little bit of salt. Okay, I'm going to put the top right over these green beans just to contain a little bit of the steam. Grab my tongs, get them ready. Now I'm going to put this back over here on low. And I've got some sliced water chestnuts, and I'm going to put those right in with my ginger and my garlic. Just stir those around a little bit so they start to get a little bit of heat and start to be infused with the flavors of the spices. That lovely ginger smells phenomenal. Okay, let's take a look at these green beans real quick. Now if you were blanching them, you'd take them and put them in ice cold water very quickly. But I don't want to do that right now because I want them to cook down a little bit. I still want the green beans to be a little bit crunchy, and I want my water chestnuts to be real crunchy. So this is going to go straight in. As soon as we get these green beans in, we're going to give them a little bit of a stir. Give them a little bit of a stir here. And I am going to take a little bit of my water. Let's turn this off. A little bit of my boiled water. And I'm going to put a little bit in here just to help them steam a little bit more. Okay, we're good to go there. Now it's time to start on our crab cakes. Let's just give it one more stir. It's going to be on low for about 5 minutes. And all that water is going to evaporate. Let's start on our crab cakes. Let me get this over here and get my crab cakes out of the fridge. Oh, they look fabulous. Take a good look. Okay, I'm going to put this right here. And the first thing I'm going to do is start with some oil in my pan. And I'm going to put my pan on high because I want the initial temperature and the pan to be really almost smoking. And because I do things a little bit differently, you can use clarified butter. I'm not going to use clarified butter. Once the pan gets hot, I'm going to put just a little butter right in the pan before I put the crab cakes in. Okay. Now, let's go back to our beans just for a minute. And I'm going to get some lemon. And we're going to give a good squeeze of lemon all the way around the green beans. And some soy sauce. About a tablespoon. We're going to eyeball it. That's the one thing you want to do, is make sure before you finish, you test it out to see if it's got enough salt for you. Because this does contain some salt. Okay. I'm getting hungry. Okay, let's take a look at our oil. It's almost getting ready to start smoking. It is smoking. Put a little bit of butter in here with my oil. I'm going to turn this down to low. And I'm going to start with my crab cakes. We're not going to crowd them. We're only going to put 4 at a time in. And the batch that I made with that crab meat, the pound of crab meat, makes a beautiful serving for 4 people, 2 crab cakes each. So you've got 8 crab cakes in the recipe. All right, we're going to let that cook for 3 minutes on this side, flip it over, and then we're going to let it cook for another 3 minutes on the other side till it's nice and golden brown. I'm going to go to a break right now, and when we come back, our green beans will be ready, our crab cakes will be ready, and we'll be able to use our forks.
When you start with local produce, add some homegrown Carolina pride, and mix it all with a commitment to family, you get more than a locally based grocery store. You get the taste of home. Lowe's Foods. Lowe's Foods, proud sponsor of the Coastal Kitchen and ATM CTV.
I have had a wonderful time cooking this meal today. It's been so much fun, so easy, and it looks wonderful. Now, finishing up, I did top my pineapple upside down cake with coconut to make it a little different than with a cherry. You could, if you wanted to, put some sesame seeds on top of the green beans. A perfect accompaniment for the crab cake with the ginger is wonderful plum wine. It's great, it's sweet, but it absolutely accents everything wonderfully. I've drizzled a little aioli on top of my crab cakes, and I've made a little bed of it underneath, and so I'm ready to try it. How about you? You really have to try this recipe. Check us out on Facebook. Search for The Coastal Kitchen. See you next time.
Is 6:30 too early for a Get Fit workout? Are your weeknights too hectic to catch the West Brunswick football? Do you find yourself missing all your favorite ATMC TV shows? Well, now you don't have to. ATMC TV is airing all their latest shows on demand. Stop, pause, fast forward, or rewind. Watch your shows on your time. Tune to Channel 1 to see shows like Brunswick Biz, Get Fit, The Coastal Kitchen, and more. Stay connected to beautiful Brunswick County with ATMC TV on demand. Brought to you free by ATMC.